Hello, my name is Odalis Penichet, and this is my Pecha Kucha presentation for Professor Lane's ENC 2301. The topic of this presentation is football injuries and brain disease, a growing concern. Football is the pastime sport of America, but it's more dangerous than we all thought. As many of you do, I ask myself, how can a sport that has been played by thousands of Americans for 50 years or more be so dangerous to individuals? But it is. Not only can people suffer paralysis or severe neck injuries, but the most important one, and the one that has been overlooked, is brain injuries. Football has become more powerful than ever before. Football players get tackled multiple times, and in doing so, some suffer concussions from the hard hits that ultimately lead to brain disease. One hit to the brain causes severe brain damage to an athlete, even when signs do not immediately show. Many studies have proven that repeated hits to the brain in football cause brain damage and brain disease. One of the most significant brain disease found is chronic traumatic encephalopathy, also known as CTE. Signs of CTE, the leading brain disease in football, may not immediately show over time, but it does mean the brain has been damaged. In a study done in December of 2012, brain samples were taken from 85 individuals who had history of brain injuries in sports. Results of this study showed that 80% of the brain samples had signs of CTE, which is an incurable disease that leads to several other problems such as depression, memory loss, and suicidal thoughts, among others. CTE has 4 stages of progression, categorized from the mildest form being stage 1 to the most severe form being stage 4. Stages of CTE lead to symptoms such as headache and loss of concentration, through stage 4, where dementia has already begun and individuals have trouble speaking. These are just one of the many studies that have proved how dangerous CTE really is. Other studies have also shown that football athletes in high school are also at risk for CTE. If performing routine brain scans on high school, college, and professional athletes was required, CTE could be diagnosed early and progression of the disease would be avoided. This would lessen the severity of the brain disease for many athletes. When football players suffer from a concussion or exhibit any sign of head injury, they are required to be removed from practice for the day. However, it has been proven that signs of a concussion may not appear for several hours or days, so a player can have a concussion and still be playing without knowing. This can lead to serious consequences. In the NFL, when players exhibit immediate signs such as trouble balancing or amnesia, they are removed from the game on the spot. However, if they are just still dizzy or have a headache, they can return to the game immediately. Bernard Pollard, a hard-hitting safety for the Baltimore Ravens, said for the most part, football players know what they sign up for. Other players such as Joe Flacco agree. President Barack Obama said that if he had a son, he would not want him playing football because of the recent studies that have revealed severe head trauma such as CTE. He said, if I had a son, I'd have to think long and hard before I let him play football. He also said, those of us who love the sport are going to have to wrestle with the fact that it will probably change gradually to try to reduce some of the violence. Football players in high school are already showing signs of brain injury and brain disease. By the time these players get into the NFL, their head injuries can be extremely severe. Some of these players don't even know how serious their injuries are because there has been no proactive measures in place to treat these players. Beloved football player Junior Seau died at age 43 in May of 2012 from a self-inflicted gunshot. His brain was donated to science at his request, where it was diagnosed with severe CTE. His family is now suing the NFL, claiming that the NFL neglects to inform its players of the seriousness of brain disease caused by head injuries in football. As brain disease in football becomes a growing concern, training athletes on proper tackling techniques, performing routine brain scans during physical evaluations, and lengthening the period of recovery when athletes are diagnosed with a concussion can reduce the likelihood of football athletes suffering from life-threatening brain injuries that lead to CTE. Unfortunately, CTE is irreversible, but I do believe that scans and MRIs can be done ahead of time to determine whether or not an athlete actually has CTE, and if so, we can look into ways of controlling it so they don't end up getting to stage 4 where they can suffer from dementia, depression, and even suffer from suicidal thoughts. I love a great football game like any other football fan, but in order to continue celebrating Super Bowl championships and national college championships, we need to begin by conducting CT or MRIs when a player is hurt and determining if the player has CT, and if so, finding a way to stop the disease from progressing. That way, we don't lose any more football players to this horrible disease.